right, thank you all very much for coming. We are missing one city council member, so we're gonna try to fill in the time while we get a quorum together. So, I'd like to invite you to stand and, do the pledge of allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just signing, you know, man.
All right, well, let's just hang on.
Where did you want me? Oh, right here. There's an outlet right there. Annie is not able to make it, and neither is Robert.
Unless you get situated.
If anyone else.
Yeah, I will make a motion to excuse Robert and Annie.
I'll second that motion. All right. Do you hear that? Catch that, Paul? Good. Well, there's the aye. Aye.
Aye.
There you go. And, all right, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all fair side?
Aye.
Aye.
That is, thank you. All right, this brings us to public comment. Does anyone in the audience like to address the chamber? Anything that's not already on the agenda?
Your item's been approved.
We're first.
No, it's already done.
It's done.
It's on the consent.
Anybody else, public comment? All right.
Sorry, Mary Repart and Johanna Rowe. Yeah. Who do you want?
Let's do Mary.
Sarah.
Hi, your audio is very, very bad tonight for some reason. You're coming in and out, and you all disappeared for a little bit. And I've got a pretty good connection on my side, so I don't know what's going on your side. Thanks.
Mary is completely correct about that. I'm also having trouble with both audio and currently I have no video.
There's video. Okay. How's that? Okay. Better?
Yeah.
All right, Mary, did you have some comments?
No, no, I don't. That was my comment. Thank you very much. I'm here for the I'm here for the pesticide part.
Okay. And then. Johanna, were you talking about the same, were you bringing up the same issue?
Ditto.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Okay, moving on to the noise ordinance. It's the public hearing. So I would like to open the public hearing at 6:06. Staff report, please.
So the last noise ordinance version that we had, council discussed at the public hearing, and the feedback that I got was to add the ability to have basically quiet time hours between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. And so that would allow events such as Blues and Brews to go on until 10, or if there were open mic nights at restaurants, that would also be able to go on until 10 p.m. and without any permits or any other council actions. And that's the only change. I also spoke with John Mobley and Judith Lands. They've discussed the noise issues with the A&J mechanical equipment. And John is researching alternate panels to mitigate the issue. There's different types that are now available that weren't the last time he checked, and he's hopes to get an answer and come to some sort of resolution in the next month or so.
Good.
That's it.
That's all I have for my staff report.
All right, does anybody in the audience have any comments about the current version of the proposed noise ordinance? And did you guys have any concerns, questions, comments?
Are you asking the public or are you asking?
I guess I'm gonna wait a little bit on the public. Nothing, anybody?
You got a couple
Oh, you
of
have
hands
3
up.
hands.
Okay.
Let's do Mary.
And Mary Ann.
Mary, go ahead.
Mary, did you say Mary?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I think the 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. is really a good idea. But also, I hope that in the ordinance, I didn't get a chance to read your text part, was that Washington State has a very, very good nuisance ordinance. And I think that RCW should be in the ordinance to let people know, because they can avail of that themselves of that nuisance ordinance when things don't work out with enforcement by either law enforcement or the city. And it's a very good ordinance, I think. I've used it myself, and it works. And I think the public needs to know more about it, because actually it's very broad-based and says quality of life, if your quality of life is affected. So thank you very much for doing a noise ordinance. And again, I'd like to see that part of it inside the nuisance ordinance also mentioned in your noise ordinance, so that the public can avail itself of them when they don't have other options. And is there anywhere in your noise ordinance, what happens, because I know that sometimes events tend to go past even the 11 or 12 o'clock deadline. So what happens if somebody goes over? Are the police going to be able to do something about it? Who's going to enforce that? Thanks.
So law enforcement is the current enforcing agency.
Can I get that view? I'm on Zoom, but I don't see people raising their hands.
Did you hit
Have that.
participants?
I just clicked on the link on the agenda.
Oh,
'cause I didn't get anything
because I need
from-
to make you.
joining. Perfect. All right, and is that Johanna's hand still up, or does she have a comment?
No, I'll take it down. Sorry.
Thank you. It's okay. And then Ann Lewis.
Hi there.
Hi, Ann.
Hello.
Hey, I just would like to,
State your name. State your name for the record.
Ann Looters. I would just like to point out in regards to the noise ordinance, I've made a couple of comments before. I think 10 p.m. is maybe a slight bit early. I don't know how many people have had the opportunity to enjoy downtown Stevenson after 10 p.m. I know generally speaking, there aren't many businesses open, but as you pointed out, some of the events particularly fair, the Bluegrass Festival, Blues and Brews, they bring a lot of nice people into our community who, as the festivals and events wind down, like to go out and kind of enjoy our community. And I think 10 o'clock might be a little early. I would maybe recommend that the council consider either 10:30 or even 11 p.m. in the summer. And I think you could clarify the summer months. That's all I have for my comment.
And that was mainly amplified music. So as far as people going out and enjoying downtown, unless there was going to be an open mic downtown after 10 o'clock, that'd be my only comment on that.
If I may counter, Mr. Mayor, I think that's a very good point.
Go for it.
And just from my days working with Bluegrass Festival, there are some late night folks, and generally I suppose it's not amplified, but it could be considered that, I suppose. Nonetheless, that's my comment, and I appreciate you hearing me out.
Thanks for coming.
And couldn't that just be solved with a variance?
I don't know if we have a variance we don't have variance procedure in the noise ordinance.
I'm looking at it right here.
Wouldn't it be allowed by permit for things like big concerts and festivals? That would be permit allowed?
The variance is once this ordinance is enacted and they're not able to meet the regulations in the ordinance immediately, it's a variance to give them time to come into, right.
So it's not a variance like we'd have in like a land use contract.
Yeah. Well, maybe we want to consider adding that.
Or at least some type of a permit,
Yeah,
Be like
a
a
permit process.
liquor permit sort of thing.
yeah.
Which would have to
Between these
be
3 days, we're going to allow Bluegrass Festival
To
to
go till
extend
11
till
o'clock.
11 o'clock,
which
exactly.
would have to be voted on like a liquor license.
Okay,
Okay, well, I'm kind of reluctant to go to a fourth reading, but I like the concept.
I guess since you're not likely to have a lot of that sort of activity this time of year, I think staff could try to present something that would be some kind of a permit process that would be included in this thing if you wanted to bring it back.
So, right, and adding to that, this still has to be approved by Department of Ecology, which can take months. And so in that interim time, we can work on this permit process while they review the rest of the ordinance.
True, I guess you could, there's no harm, you get no harm in passing what you got tonight, and then we could always amend it to include a permit process.
If we amend it, do we have to go back to the DOE and
Or
have
do
them
we wait?
approve all that amendment?
Or do we wait?
In reading the statute or the guidance, it says when you vary from the WAC, and I think this is just variance from the WAC the first time. And I can provide language saying that we're looking at a permit process for events when I submit it to them for their review and ask them if it needs another review from their standpoint.
I would prefer that.
me too, that sounds great. We're just trying to give ourselves more tools, really.
Are we still open?
No, we are not. I mean, yes, we are. So
Just wanted to double check.
any other? I don't see any other hands up. Nobody here. So we will close public comment at 6:15. Any additional council or staff discussion?
Did we address Judith's?
Yes,
Did I
that
feel that?
was
Did we address
John's
Judith's?
looking into some
Right,
additional.
and there's nothing that we need to add. She wasn't asking us to change this in any way, right?
She was asking to keep it as it was.
Yeah, and we did.
No, to keep the ordinance as it is where it's following the WACs
With decibels, right?
with decibels.
Okay, thank you.
But John is working with her.
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you.
Well, any other comments? I'd entertain a motion.
I would move to approve ordinance 2021-1176 noise ordinance as discussed.
Second.
All right, first and a second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. That is unanimous. Thank you all very much. All right, next up, CDBG project review. I'd like to open up public comment, public hearing at 6:17. Leona?
So I'm going to defer to Mario. He's the person, Mario Harita is the person that has been managing the project, along with Dave from Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation. And he'll be able to provide an update on the project and the residents that we've been able to assist both in Skamania and Klickitat County with this.
Hi, everybody. Could you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks for having me. So, my name is Mario Heredia, and I work for Columbia Cascade Housing, which is an umbrella of Mid-Columbia Housing Authority. First off, I just want to thank you guys for helping us administer this program, to the mayor, everybody there in the city, especially Liana. She was a key player for sure in the whole program. She was super helpful with all the information we needed, especially as a middle person between us and the state. So just to give you guys a quick rundown of the program, what it is, it's a home repair program. It's anything related to health or safety. It could consist of like plumbing, electrical, roofing. It's steered more towards lower, moderate income families. So we want to make sure we help the people that are most in need. We actually had quite a bit from the city of Skamania. We helped a total of 15 houses. And I believe out of those 15, it was a total of 8 houses from Stevenson. So we're pretty happy that a lot of the community there in that county were able to participate. And so what it is, it's a loan with 0 interest, and it's paid back after 30 years. So they don't make, they can start making payments whenever they want, as much as they want, as long as it's paid fully after 30 years. That's all that matters. But during the whole 30 years, there's no interest whatsoever. So a lot of people that needed roofs, new plumbing, electrical, and they were low income, they didn't have those funds to do that. This program was super helpful. So like I said, we helped a total of 15 homes, a total of around 29 people in those homes. We received additional funding through a repayment. So we actually had a person that paid us back while the program was still active, and that was a total of $24,000 around there. So we had to re-spend the money, which we did successfully. We're actually waiting on one more home to finish here, which is any minute now. I believe the contractor said it should be done next week. So we worked on homes in 11 different communities in 2 counties. Last year, we worked with Klickitat PUD and also to provide free ductless wall heaters to, I believe it was about 4 homes. But this year they didn't have any funding. But I believe last time I spoke with the person there at PUD, they said they are going to have funding again. So we're hoping to get that going again, especially with the county of Skamania. We had a couple different things done for the 15 homes. We had 2 new homes had windows replaced, another 4 floors repaired, 7 homes had new roofs. We had 4 with new siding, 1 with the septic, 1 with the well. We had 1 with the foundation. It was the corner of the foundation that needed to be lifted or jacked up and repaired. And I believe I have 1 more here, just briefly. So 25% of those had income less than 30%, which means they were very low income. And then for a family of 2 in Stevenson, this would be less than $23,200 gross a year. 30% had income between 30 and 50% area median income. This would be less than $38,700 for 2 people in Skamania County. And then the last one would be 45% earned between 50 and 80% AMI for a family of 2 in Skamania County. This was a maximum of 61,900. So yeah, that's all I got. I'm not sure if you guys have any questions or any concerns.
I have a question, if I may, Mario.
Hi.
Hi, this is Amy. Can you just tell us what the total grant amount was? And then of that total grant amount, is how much of that is going to be administered by White Salmon next year?
Yeah, of course. So the total amount spent here, let me make sure.
And just ballpark is fine too.
Yeah, it was around 450,000.
Okay.
And I believe it's gonna be the same amount in White Salmon. The thing is, it just depends on what the government says as far as how much funding and how we can use it. For example, we also have the same program in Oregon, but in Oregon last year it was a grant, so all the money was pretty much free money, and they gave us around the same 450,000. This year in Oregon, we already finished that program. This year in Oregon, they only gave us 100,000 in grant money, and then the rest was 400, and that was for loans. And so the loans can go up to 30,000, the grants can go up to 15,000, as long as there's as long as the home, we can only use half of the value of the home for the program. So if it's a, let's say, manufactured home and it's only worth 20,000, the maximum allowed there would be 10,000. But usually we are able to use the full amount for the loan one. They have to have enough equity for us to be able to give them the full amount. So they have to have at least $30,000 in equity so we can give them the full loan. And usually we try to work with them. We try to, if they do, for example, like a BPO, or they do a kind of an assessment on the property. Sometimes obviously it'll show that it's worth more, and the government or the state does allow us to do that. So that kind of helps out the family. But it honestly just depends on what they give us. But I do believe they're going to give us around 450,000. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be a loan also for the city of White Salmon.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, thanks, Liana, for administering that.
Yeah,
That was
thank you
probably a
very
fair
much.
bit of work for you.
Yeah. It was a
They
lot
did
of work,
most of the
honestly.
hard work with the paperwork on their end, so. yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
it's- And I'm glad we're continuing to keep it going.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's gonna rotate back and forth then?
Yeah, so before we had it, Bingen was
Uh-huh.
doing it, and it's, we've had it for, I think, a 2-year cycle. We were able to extend it because of COVID. There were some challenges with getting the contractors and some of the projects wrapped up, so.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so I hope hopefully we get to work again in the near future after White Salmon, because I think it did help a lot of families. It just it brought a lot of the money back to the community.
And the program is still open to Skamania County residents, even though.
Even though White Salmon
Yes,
is.
yes.
Yes, so it would be Skamania and Clickahaw County. Yes, correct.
Thank you, Mario. Thanks, Mario.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your
And
time.
what it looks like?
Thank you.
All right. This time I would invite any comments from the public.
Say that again?
Cindy's mic is hot.
Mary has a comment.
Go ahead, Mary.
I have a question. Does this program also deal with rentals too? And how would that work if it does?
Hi, Mary. This program actually doesn't help with rentals, but as far as like some of the agencies we work with, like PUD, they will provide assistance to rentals. We had one property where they applied and they actually didn't own the home, but we were able to connect them with a local agency to get, I believe they did like the insulation, the HVAC, a heating and cooling system, and the windows. So usually if we can't help them, we try to connect them with somebody else locally to assist them. We also do have funding in Washington. We applied for another CDBG program that does provide assistance for people that are behind, like on their rent or on their mortgage actually also, but right now for home repairs, I think the only one providing assistance is PUD from Clickitat County. But I'm gonna do some research and try to find out if there's anybody else that would provide assistance for renters in Skamania County.
Thank you, Mario.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? All right, I'd like to close the public hearing at 6:26. Any additional council or staff discussion?
I think it's awesome.
We do.
Awesome opportunity for people.
Okay, so that was just a review, right? So there's no,
Right, there's no action from council. It's a project review as part of the closeout process for the grant.
very good. All righty, up next.
Thank you, Mario.
Thanks, Mario. Enjoy your night.
Guys, good night.
All right, I'd like to open the public hearing for the proposed property tax levy at 6:29. Liana?
So by law, we have the ability to increase the amount of property tax that the city collects. And this is the dollar amount that the city collects by 1% plus any new construction, annexations, and state assessments. And the 1% is included in the current budget. And of the property taxes that people pay with their property tax bill, 19% of that for 2021 anyway, is what was allocated to the city. Half to sometimes more than half of your property taxes go to the state school system. And then it gets allocated out between the county, cemetery districts, port districts, EMS districts,
All the junior taxing.
all the junior taxes. Correct. And it does not, I don't know what the rate is going to be yet. They do that based off of property tax assessments, and that will come out towards the beginning of the year. However, we are not near the cap that the city has to collect, which is 3.2%.
So
Over
the
3%.
so the 1% and the total amount that the increase to the city, it says it's a little over 5,000.
Correct.
All right, $5,008.65.
Yes.
And it really just helps us, my understanding is it helps us keep up with inflation.
As best we can.
I mean, not-
It doesn't,
inflation-
but yes.
Inflation is twice that
Right,
amount, but
right.
still, we're less
Right.
behind than we,
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yes.
yeah, I don't have any questions. I'm ready for a
Okay.
motion.
All right, so staff report done.
Stuff we're done.
Any comments from the public? Look like it. All right, I'd like to close the public hearing at 6:30. Any other discussion? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-384, authorizing an increase in property taxes for 2022.
I'll second.
Hey.
First and second, any further discussion? Thanks, Paul.
You can give it to Paul.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi,
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the ordinance.
Motion to approve ordinance 2021-1177, fixing the amount to be raised by the ad valorem taxes and levied for 2022.
Go ahead, Paul.
second,
First and second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
hi.
Thank you. All right, next up is the 2022 sewer rates. I'd like to open the public hearing at 6:31. Liana.
Okay. So as part of the staff memo that I did for the sewer rates, I went back to the very beginning of this process, which
Yeah.
really was back into about 2007 to 2009 timeframe. And that was the time where the city was experiencing some peak BOD influence, which is biochemical oxygen demand. And a lot of that comes from fats, oils, and grease. So if you put food down the drain, or if you pour leftover beer or alcohol down the drain, it's organics that comprise of BOD and make that spike up. One of the things that the city did is they worked with the restaurants to improve and better collect the fats, oils, and grease from restaurants. They also sent out notifications to people to improve their practices when washing dishes, to reduce the level of BOD. And they also worked with Walking Man, which was the only brewery at that time, to see what they can do to improve their processes. And that seemed to have worked for a few years. Then in 2015, the issue started coming back, and we went into being required to do a systems facility plan. And in 2017, because the BOD was not going down, and again, this is what the permitted level is, what our plant is able to treat and make sure does not go out into the Columbia.
Mhm.
They talked about re-rating the plant, however, that was never done in that time period. And so by
When you
the
say they, you talking DOE?
engineers and council talked about re-rating the plant. And that hadn't been done in time, or again, I tried to look at the records. It was a challenge, but in the end, in 2017, because we received multiple violations, the state issued the city an administrative order. And in that administrative order, it laid out the steps that we needed to take, which included constructing major upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant, as well as increasing our sewer rates.
Okay, question.
Yes.
During this time frame, then, were the other breweries down in the port area?
No.
Had they come on
For
board yet?
2015 to, that was when they were coming on board.
So that could have dramatically influenced that. Okay.
And so from 2017 to present, I think even before then, staff had been talking, and I got here in 2017, so I can tell you for sure that when we got here in 2017, we started having communications with the beverage industry. And there's a bottling, a co-packing facility and 2 breweries, and as well as working with the restaurants on the fats, oils, and grease program. We updated that and instituted a better program to, again, help them to be in compliance and remain in compliance with that, to reduce their impact of BOD. And we've worked with the beverage industry, and they have side streamed immensely and have instituted monitoring at their plants as well. And as you can see, in 2020, granted there was a pandemic, but in 2020, we did not have any influent violations because of the efforts that they underwent.
Okay.
However, in 2017, we still have that administrative order
So
to
we
do
have
those
to-
upgrades. We're still required to move forward with that. Mhm.
Even though we don't have the issue right now.
Correct.
Well, we were at 85% of capacity.
Right.
Hang
So,
on, hang on, staff report first.
right. And so that's probably part of the reason too, why I wanted to show the chart is, even though we got it down, we were still up against our capacity. And so we would have, the time frame might have been longer for us to get here.
Mhm.
It kind of has been accelerated because of the administrative order, but we would eventually get here because we were close. And with the growth that we've been seeing, it would have come to fruition. So that's part of the reason why I put that chart in there, was to show you how we have been close to capacity.
Is that the monthly influent BOD loading?
Right on page
Chart?
443. Yeah. And then on page 44, I list all of the requirements that are in that administrative order and what we've done to date on that. And we've done a lot since 2017. We've been very busy. Staff has been working really hard with the significant industrial users, as well as taking over the plant and making it run more efficiently. So one of the things that they have done is they've been able to reduce the amount of biosolids that are sent to other facilities with process improvements. And that saves us cost of operations and maintenance. It doesn't improve what comes into the plant, but it does improve the cost of what we have to pay for operating the plant. And on page 44, I also list all of the loans that we've received, which are low interest, long-term loans through either Department of Ecology or USDA. Those are the two loaning agencies that we have right now, as well as the grants that we have received. And so we received a small grant through USDA, a large $4 million grant through the EDA, and then in the recently approved funding package at the federal level, we have $2.5 million in that. I'm still waiting to hear back what the process is to get that, but we were on, I have the document that says we were on that list in that package, yeah.
Yippee.
Great.
Big deal.
Yes.
Does Philip know that?
I'm waiting to get the confirmation from the,
I hear you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still slightly cautious, but yeah. And so with all of that effort and everything that the city and staff has done, we're now to the point where we're going to start constructing the upgrades next year. And even with that, we're doing it in a manner that is cost effective. So for example, later on in the council meeting, you have the equipment bids to approve or to award. And part of the reason why we're doing that is to procure long lead items and to save overhead costs on those expensive high ticket long lead items. So we're trying to do it as effective as possible. And on page 45 is the results of the efforts on the, I'd say, the end of the sewer rate increases, but it's really the end of the ramp up of the sewer rate increases. There, initially, it would have been about $197,000, and that was based on a 2019 rate study. The current estimated ending rate is $176 a month for residential rates. And if we get that confirmed $2.5 million, it will drop it down to $157 a month.
That's great.
I know those rates are all high, but we're doing the best we can to keep them as low as possible.
And we started at something in the neighborhood of 40.
Actually, it was 25. So it was, yeah.
From 25 to 100 and let's just say 60 in 10 years.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
In 10 years?
Yeah. Mhm. And if you look on the following page, the blue bar is the revenue, and then the other bars are the expenses. And while we are receiving, so one asterisk for 2021, one of the large costs that we have is slip lining the sewer mains. That hasn't taken place yet, and that's about $100,000. And so when you see that difference right now between the revenue and the expenses, there are still some expenses that are left to come in this year that will make up that difference. And any costs that are not, if we save costs and the revenues come in as anticipated, that will just be cash carryover for next year. And then that can go into reserves or to fund any future capital needs in addition to what we're saving right now. So for example, at the last council meeting, I talked about the digester needs to be upgraded as well. If that's $2 million, it'll take us 10 years. If we're able to also save more money and put more money aside with other efficiencies, we can do that sooner, or I'm sure there's other things that will also come up in that time frame that we'll need to repair or replace.
What's the lifelong expectancy of the new plants? 30 years? 20 years?
2040 is the next time frame that I have for looking at possibly needing another clarifier. It's all dependent on growth. And how we're able to manage it and how we're able to improve our processes to push that out, or again, if that growth speeds up, it might bring it in. But that's, so one thing that will also come up is changes to the system development charges, and that will go into reserves to help pay for that future growth.
And I think we didn't approve a piece of software that was going to help us assess and analyze how much we needed to set aside for future infrastructure projects, right?
Right,
So-
not yet.
Yeah.
I think one thing I want to try to see if we can accomplish it through other means first, and then
Yeah.
reevaluate, because the cost that they pitched us initially was a lot higher than what it turned out to be.
So what I'm wondering is how we're doing that planning now.
Hold on.
We're still in the public.
We're at the staff report. Staff report,
Sorry.
Staff report,
good,
that was all.
thank you. Any comments from the public so far? Oh, there we go. Mary?
One second, let me unmute her.
Hi, this is going to get expensive for residents in our community, and especially older people and people on fixed incomes and lower wage. So are we going to try to do something to put programs in place where they can get help if they need it in order to stay in their homes? Because and not only water and sewer is going up, but everything is going up. And that, so it can become very stressful. Thank you.
So one thing, we currently have a 50% discount for seniors. I was talking earlier with staff about instituting a 2-tiered system, so a 50% and a 75%. So it's a little bit less of a reduction to your bill, but you're still able to get a bit of a discount if you don't meet that 50%.
Is that discount based on financial information?
Yes, it is. We send people to the senior services because that way they can get additional information and additional resources rather than just sewer rate reduction. They can tie them in with other agencies.
Thanks.
Any other comments? All right, I'd like to close the public hearing at 6:45. Now the questions.
Well, my question was, how do we prevent ourselves from falling into this trap again? As I roll off council and other people come on and we don't have the historical perspective, and staff, sort of comes and goes sometimes. It's like,
Rob had a comment.
Oh, well, there he is. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, sorry about being a little bit late on the trigger there. And Amy started going into where I was going to go. I was going to add that, the remaining city council members, as we're rolling Amy off and and Roberts appearing to maybe head that way as well. You need to look at that chart of rates and remind yourself that the council is, 100% behind that the flat rate for all those years, and then they're 100% behind the steep growth too. I've been around the city council for about 25 years in my role with the city and the fire department, and I has been a term used multiple times, enough that I know what it is. So just moving forward, think about that, planning, equipment repair, replacement. It's a real thing and it exists. And it's been something of a gap that we have had in the city, my department included. So just take that into the thought process. I think Amy was going in that direction with her comments. So that's just what I had to add.
Thanks, Rob.
And so a couple of the things that we've done is we have the software for asset management, and it creates work orders, it creates maintenance schedules, and it allows us to track the assets within the system. And then a piece of that we were going to roll into this additional forecasting tool. We're also able to do it not only within that system that we have, but also within our capital improvement program that we're working on setting up, which takes all of the plans that we have and lays them on top of each other. And that CIP will institutionalize that knowledge. That is our goal, so we don't get here again. And on top of that, in the past, the rate studies that were done as part of the wastewater system plan update were done by a third party. Through this process, I've been able to work with RCAC and get a tool that we can manipulate, which includes an asset management system that calculates out how much you need to set aside to maintain that fund so that you can maintain your assets. Because if you spend the money to maintain them on the front end, they last a lot longer on the back end and you get more out of it. So those are our goals, is to stay on top of maintenance by running the plan ourselves and spending the time necessary to maintain what we have, allocate the resources to that, and plan for the future.
And the capital improvement plan is happening, like, when's that?
It's ongoing. We were waiting for the transportation study, which we received a draft of last Friday. And we want to incorporate, again, all of the studies into that.
So is there can you just hazard a guess, yeah, this will be done by the end of next year, or yeah.
And it's part of the planning process to upgrade our comprehensive plan. So the CIP is part of the comprehensive plan. Due to COVID, it fell off, but we're now back into the cycle with that, and it'll just be part of that next update.
And then through an organic process, and then also because of that, anyway, we've had some of our partners here in town say, hey, these are some things we're working on that we would like, that will require some modifications, upgrades along the way. I'm not sure that they came to us with that in mind, but I said, well, this is perfect because we are working on this capital improvement plan. And if we had priorities 1 through 5, here's a partner that says we are going to need this by such and such, then we can adjust that. And then took that message out, like, for example, to the port. If you would like to share some of your plans, your projects, we would love to be able to work that into our improvement plan so that we're not tripping over each other.
So a quick question then. How do the rates compare to other cities our size? Have you run a comparison on that?
Yeah. I've seen it. I know you've done it. I've seen it.
Yeah. I haven't done it this go round. In 2016, DOE did a full study calling each and every city to see what their rates were. And back in 2016, the median rate or the average rate was $57 a month And
Okay.
at that time, we were, I think at 30,
2017. Yeah, we're below 50.
right? So at that time, we were under the average. The city of South Bend was, I believe, the highest. They had recently upgraded their plant in a similar circumstances or under similar conditions that we are having to upgrade ours, and theirs were, I think it was already in like 157 in 2016.
Okay. And the only other question I have is how do we monitor the side streaming? That
So
the, breweries or whoever are doing to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
So we have a contract with one of the breweries,
Mhm.
and that sets limits on what they submit to us. They're also supposed to submit to us monthly reports. The other one is under a permit with Department of Ecology. And we also are, I mean, the short answer is you notice it at the plant.
Oh, yeah.
So when we see those slug loads or those impacts to the plant, we do research. And
Okay. So how do we fix that before it gets to the plant? Is what my question is. How do we ensure that those companies are in fact doing that? I mean, how do we monitor?
we
What-
can't do a continual point in time monitoring system of the plants. It is always a retroactive monitoring
Okay,
process because DOD 5 is a 5-day hold period,
Okay, I understand that.
right?
So if I own a brewery, how do you know that what's coming out of into our sewer system from that plant? How do we know that other than how our plant reacts later on,
The reports that they provide us
which is based on
on a monthly basis. So again, we collect those reports on a monthly basis from our contracted operators and have a relationship with them. In the end, it's a large part of trust. I mean, because it's always going to be, you're going to have to back regulate. You can't regulate in real time.
Okay, well,
There's
maybe
a
I
test
need,
and measurement.
maybe
Right.
I need to go
Place.
Right.
down and find out how they're doing it.
There's like a hole in the ground with a little test and measurement device, right?
Okay.
And so what happens?
Because I don't know what the process
Right,
is,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's why I'm asking, because
Mhm.
I want to ensure that, if another brewery comes into town, we have something in place that's going to ensure that they're going to be doing these standards as opposed to just,
So another thing that was a requirement as part of the process with our administrative order was that we update our ordinance to be the most up-to-date Department of Ecology standards with pre-treatment, depending on what industry comes in
Right.
to the city.
and don't get me wrong, I'm not against, them, doing that type of business with the beverage industry. It's just that I want to make sure that our infrastructure is protected.
Mhm.
And we don't want to bring something in that's going to adversely affect our infrastructure.
Well, and we currently have a moratorium. Nobody can come
Right.
in.
Right.
So that's not an issue
Right.
until our plant is online.
I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'd prefer to see it go to a second reading, so I'm not gonna make a motion.
On that question, is anyone not able to make the December meeting? Because sometimes that's an iffy date.
I'll be here.
Okay.
I'll be there.
Okay. Paul, will
And
you be able
I-
to make it?
I likely not. I will likely be in, out of the country.
Okay. I will check for a quorum then. Okay.
Are both of you also leaning towards a second reading?
I am.
Okay.
I don't know about Paul.
Oh, I was ready to go tonight, but you know, I'm 1 out of 3 here. Doesn't matter.
So your budget though depends on approving this because.
The budget is based on these sewer rates, yes.
So you'd have to do a budget amendment if in December it wasn't approved. Is that right?
Yeah, yes.
I think my argument on this is that the problem is not really these big increases that we're seeing lately. The problem is the flat period that we saw 20 years ago. Had we been increasing steadily this whole time, then we wouldn't have these dramatic increases now, and we would be saving for future sewer plants later. Nobody wants to see these huge increases. I certainly don't, but it's none of we didn't create the problem. We're just addressing the problem in the only manner that we can. And as a result, our hands are tied. We have to increase rates like this. We have no choice.
Would it need 3, Ken?
Yes, it does. It's an ordinance.
So where are we with the budget if we don't move to approve this tonight?
You're fine tonight. If it's not approved in December, then it will impact the budget because the rates won't increase. And so it'll decrease the revenue projections that I have. Because this ordinance has to be in effect 5 days before you enact it. And the January bill is when it was going to be taken effect.
But it can be corrected with a budget amendment.
It can be, right.
Pretty cool.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I'd like to see it wait because we specifically implemented a process of having 2 readings.
Right.
So that we give people enough notice and time if they want to comment. So
Especially
it
after
doesn't feel like an
hearing,
emergency,
especially after hearing the discussion tonight. There may be there are other citizens out there that would like to comment as well, so.
Yeah.
And another public hearing then?
That's what I was.
what I'm
Okay.
hearing.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so before we jump into this one, I just want to go around the room. What is everyone here to comment on? Just here? What do you guys? I want to see what you guys are participating, or if you're going to participate.
Pesticides and standby pay.
Perfect.
It's a couple of them.
Pesticides. All right.
Oh, awesome.
Okay. All right, so I do want to finish out the public hearings, but because we have guests, if you guys aren't opposed, I'd like to move that discussion, the pesticide discussion up. So if our guests want to move on with their evening, they can.
That's fine.
All right, so let's see, moving on to the last public hearing, the final hearing for the 2022 proposed budget. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7 o'clock. Liana.
So a large portion of my time these past couple of days have been implementing the budget changes from the November 8th council meeting, as we discussed. One of the changes was revising the sales tax. And so that has been increased to $280,000 based on what we have seen come in for 2021, as well as what is projected based on the current trends for 2021. And so the $280,000 I feel is it's still conservative, assuming 2022 acts like 2021. The other big change that created a larger impact in the budget was a recalculation of the general administrative services based on the budgeted costs, as well as the agenda items for this year and the expenses for last year. And so I reallocated those also based on the revised cost allocation policy that's in your packet that we'll discuss later. And that increased the revenues that were coming in, and it increased the expenses in some of the other budgets as well. The overall impact of the reduced population I think it's about about $13,000 in revenue based on that reduction. And that translates into $3,000 reduction in general fund, about a $10,000 reduction in your street fund. And I think those were the largest changes that were made. The other change that was made, the fire chief reached out to the agency for that strategic plan, and they came back with a cost of just over, I think, $16,000. So in the budget, I put $20,000 in the budget
Instead of 50?
instead of 50. So that's reduced at $30,000. One thing I did not include in here, but I do have copies of, is an explanation of what the strategic plan is, as well as a sample document of what comes out of that process. And if you want more information on that, Rob is prepared to talk on it.
Yeah.
So let me, wrong mouse. Let's see. Okay. There you go, Rob.
Yeah, I missed last on the November 8th meeting, so I apologize. I would have been able to clarify your concerns then. Just and some of this is I made the mistake of reading the Pioneer, and I'm not 100% sure that that's an accurate report, but it seemed like you guys were calling in question my quote unquote request to increase by another 25,000. What our thought process was on that was we wanted to adequately fund the process without really knowing the true cost. The last time we talked to the consultant was in 2019, and they threw out a broad range of possibilities. It's almost like an a la carte process. So it was anywhere from about 21,000 at the time, all the way up to, $75,000, $80,000, depending on what you wanted to do. So that's kind of where we kind of got sidetracked. Resources got allocated more towards the wastewater treatment plant, and some stuff got, I had to manage a $500,000 FEMA grant over the last year. So my time was taken up as well as Leon's time. So we kind of backburnered the strategic plan. So I have more time now. So I brought it up in this year's budget, as maybe we ought to think about increasing that, and just in case we want to go a little bit more than the minimum, and add some more a la carte services. So the 50,000, 25 from, I believe, the 2021 budget and then the 2022 budget proposal, that would have paid for the City of Stevenson Fire Department and the Fire District 2. Since we're a joint operating operations, we would get a strategic plan that would encompass both, and then we would just bill the 50% of the district's share of the whole project back to them in their quarterly billing. So yeah, it looked like it was a little bit more, but it's not. So I just wanted to clarify that. And also I want to remind you guys that I don't spend my entire budget. So it kind of hurts when you guys insinuate that I'm asking for stuff when we're in hard economic times, according to the Pioneer. So just ask me some questions. I have an email, I have a phone number. Most of you guys have it. We meet every Monday night at 7 o'clock. If you want to come down to the fire station and take a look at what we're doing, be glad to have you. We have water down there. We'll serve you fresh Kirkland water. So anyway, that's all I got. If you guys got any questions, I'll be here.
Can we ask questions now?
Go for Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Rob, my concern is, you and I have done this dance, what, 3 times now? And I feel like a lot of trepidation about authorizing a study yet again for something.
I feel
that
like,
may not-
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Something that may not get built. So, I mean, I think probably you can understand where I'm coming from. Why is it different this time?
I think we're dancing a different dance. We're
Right.
not talking about the building. We're talking about a strategic plan for the fire department as a whole. How do we move forward? As a department, which will be used as a tool when we have the bandwidth to start tackling the fire station. So we're not just talking about, this strategic plan isn't geared towards the fire station. It's towards operations. What do we need for, what does the fire department look in the next 3 to 5 years is usually how a strategic plan goes. And then you roll it over again and you try to identify some accomplishments, some goals and accomplish those. That's what this is. It started out as possibly just doing a SWAT, which other fire agencies in the county were doing. And then it just will be another piece of data to help drive other projects, one being the fire station. We need to look at, are we serving the community the right way? What does staffing look like? We're getting to the point where our call volume doesn't support hiring somebody, but regulations do. What does that look like in 3 to 5 years? It's not anything set in stone. It's more of just a guidance tool. So, some other fire districts in the area are doing shared staffing agreements with the hospital district. So that will help us, which we have been approached about by Superintendent Luters at Skamania County EMS. And that just helps us identify, what do we need to look at that? Is that an option? Like I said, we have a lot more administrative and regulation type driven activities that warrant somebody working on it more than a part-time fire chief doing it for free. It's becoming a struggle. So what does it look like in 3 to 5 years? That's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
And hey, Rob, thanks for coming tonight. Last month's meeting, where we got kind of hung up is we knew that you wanted this study conducted to answer some questions, but we didn't know what those questions were. And that's why we were a little stuck on it. But you came here tonight and you're telling us what questions you want to have answered, and that's very helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem, Paul, is I haven't been through the process, so I don't know what questions, and that's part of maybe the dragging of the feet, you could say, over the last year. Don't really know how to write the scope of work, to be honest with you. So I was pleasantly surprised when I reached back out to the consultant that I had talked to in 2019, and they had recently were awarded a contract with correct me if I'm wrong, Leon, like a purchasing group in Washington State that like a group that they leverage these contracts. Like a purchasing co-op. So it was quite a bit less than what I originally talked about. I think, like Leona said, it was just a touch over 16,000 for the base. And like I said, there's some a la carte stuff. Based on the 2019 conversation, it's not a one size fit all process, because they start out as a standard generic organization, and then they come in and tailor what your department needs. So a rural fire department like ourselves might not need some things and might need some other things. So that's kind of where when Leon and I were talking budget wise, we kind of erred on the side of maybe having a little bit extra in the pot in case when we're going down the road through this journey, if we say, hey, it might be good to do a fire department evaluation instead of, a strategic plan. Well, that might be a little bit more money. So really, I think the game plan now is to look at, starting out with the strategic plan, starting getting serious, talking with the local consultant, which they're out of Lake Oswego, I think.
Yeah.
One of the suburbs down there in Portland. So we'll get a local consultant and we'll be able to guide us a little bit more. So
And this consultant has experience with rural
Yes.
departments of the city. Okay.
Yeah, in it really comes down more, and maybe I think that flyer that Liana was telling you she had copies of, there's also a list of organizations unique to the Northwest, and it has a whole wide array from large city departments to small rural fire districts and junior taxing districts. So they have a full gamut of experience, pretty reputable names. We can definitely push that out to you guys.
Rob, this is Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Is there any way to get our hands on any of the work that they have done on our size of a fire department?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. They sent, so originally, Dave, you'll recognize the guy. It was Don Bivens out of Vancouver Fire.
Yeah.
When he retired, he worked for this company for 10 years and he recently retired from the company. So he sent me a example of,
It was from Pine Top Fire Department out of Arizona. It was a
yeah,
fire
so
district.
yeah, they'll definitely be able to give, they are 100% good with giving us examples, and we can tell them, hey, this is our community size, this is our department size. Can you show us what we got? So
yeah, I'd like to see a couple of those examples.
yeah, the business manager is on holiday until after Thanksgiving, and then we have a email chain going with her and the account manager and myself and Liana. So we'll be able to give you guys more information as we progress.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob.
Yep.
Any public comment? All right.
Mary.
Go ahead, Mary.
Well, what are you actually looking comment for on the, is the fire department issue going to come up later in this discussion? Or is it just
This
for
is
the
part of
budget?
This is the budget discussion, and that was a question mark from our last budget workshop, was the strategic plan. So that was addressing some of the questions that council had specifically on that portion of the budget. But this is part of a larger budget discussion.
Well, your strategic plan has to involve the building and the land and everything else. So perhaps the later discussion when the land that was purchased on Rock Creek comes up, I will have some comments on. But yeah, the strategic plan has to include everything. And Rob's idea is good. You know, you need a good strategic plan in order to do your planning and budgeting. And if you don't have that, then what are you going to do? Just throw your hands up in the air. So thank you, Rob. I appreciate the enlightenment.
Yeah, and Mary, this is Rob. Part of the plan process that this consultant uses is heavy community involvement, 15 to 20 people on a 2-day workshop. So there would be ample time for input. And as you know, I'm always available to talk with you and reach out and get your ideas. I like getting your feedback. So yeah, it certainly will involve that. And it's kind of, I'm going to admit to you that it's kind of learning as we go. So I hope the learning curve will be pretty easy to overcome, but
Good
for
luck,
sure.
Rob.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Bert, any additional comment? Brian? Make sure you introduce yourself, please.
Oh, wait, let me- There you go. Okay, there. Can you unmute? Oh, sorry. Try it again.
What happened?
Brian, can you unmute? Let me try one more time. Brian, can you unmute?
Unmute.
There you go.
Am I doing okay? Can you not hear me?
We can hear you
We can hear
great.
now.
Make sure you introduce yourself though.
Brian McNamara, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
I'm so enheartened by this meeting, and trying to pour through this budget stuff. It's amazing, but I want to give all props to Rob. And I remember 10 or 15 years ago, we had a crack in the fire hall. Why can't we fix that? And everything else is superficial. And I hope you could hear that.
Thank you, Brian. Any additional comment? Okay, we'll close the public hearing at 7:19. Is there any additional discussion between council and staff?
No, I feel good about it and I feel complete. Thanks.
Are you guys inclined to go second go around next month?
You mean specifically on the fire hall study?
No, just as, well, I know that that's kind of in the dominant discussion, but that was part of the overall budget discussion.
Yep.
This is the first reading, so Dave and Amy are leaning towards carrying this on again next month. All right. All right, so as discussed, I would like to jump ahead to pesticide discussion. Liana.
So at the last council meeting, I presented or just brought up the comments that and complaints that had been received regarding pesticides. And one of the comments was whether or not council wanted to discuss whether or not we could ban or to discuss a ban on pesticides. I reached out to MRSC to get their take on what could and couldn't be done and what had been done in other agencies. And there are members of the Skamania County Weed Board that are present as well to talk about what is being done in the county. And in reading the code, we do have the ability to regulate the sale and use of the products. I guess part of the question is, how would we do that with the current staff that we have? If we wanted to go down that way, if you're not satisfied with the current process that exists through current state codes and other supporting agencies. We could, most of the things that the other cities are doing are regarding their own internal application of pesticides and management, not necessarily what the public can do on their own.
Right, and if you look at that 1993 AGO, our Attorney General opinion, it looks like that there's a section of the RCWs that preempts local regulation. So I don't know, I mean, I haven't had a chance to study this in depth, but reading that opinion, it looks like there is some preemption issues. There are preemption issues we'd be facing.
I don't feel comfortable with it myself. I understand the concern. But there are RCWs in place and they're there for a reason. And I believe that we should follow those RCWs as opposed to us coming up and trying to be more restrictive.
So we do have guests that wanted to speak on this, so we'll just start at the beginning. we didn't pass around a sign-up sheet, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Just, did anybody want to speak? Just make sure you introduce yourself and then jump right in.
She pointed to you first, so.
Okay, my name is Emily Stevenson. I'm the Skamania County Noxious Weed Program Coordinator. I'm just here to make sure that everyone is aware that herbicides and pesticides are a tool in the toolbox to be used. For us, you know, we work with noxious weeds. There is a RCW 1710 noxious weed law in Washington State, and pesticides are sometimes needed, and there are weeds that absolutely cannot be treated any other way, or they are treated in conjunction with pesticides. So there are some things that, I mean, we just can't do manual work on everything. It actually makes the problem worse. And so it is a very important tool for us and for landowners to use. So the RCW does require landowners to, it's their responsibility to control noxious weeds. And so
I would also, this is Cindy Solis, and I work with Emily at the Noxious Weed Program. And I just want to state that, you know, the label is the law. It's regulated by the Department of Agriculture. And so landowners are required to follow that label. And they are for use on private property. And so to try and regulate the sale of herbicides within the city is one thing, but it's still available on the shelf in Vancouver. And we are talking about private property use here. And as Leanna stated, most of the precedent is for internal municipal use. So sometimes they would choose perhaps to regulate at that level. But when you're talking about private use of a legal product on private land, that might be something that would be very difficult to enact. So there are avenues for people who feel that they're sensitive to herbicides to become, you know, get themselves put on a list and so that they are notified. And so there are a lot of opportunities for people to protect themselves if they feel the need. And additionally, I have one more thing. I can't remember what it is. I guess that's all I have for now, but we welcome anybody to contact us in our office if they have any questions, or we've got quite a few resources that we'd be happy to share with folks.
And we can add that information and link it on our website as well, so that if people have concerns.
Yeah, we've got a lot of wonderful links. There's a lot of places out there where you can go find unbiased, good, truthful information about herbicide risk and how it's assessed and what the regulations are.
Gordy Rosander, City of Stevenson. We don't use a lot of spray when we do spray. I mean, maybe a gallon a year. As you talked, just the sensitive people, we went through that. We've always had to contact the sensitive people. It's really hard to treat the weeds that are in the sidewalk, in the utility strip, because if you don't spray them, you pick them and the roots just get bigger and they grow bigger. So you got to kill them some way, unfortunately.
Mary?
Yeah, thank you. No, you don't have to use chemicals for anything, actually. What you're going to do, weed control, and people are misusing the product that they're using inside the city limits. I believe I filed a complaint about a certain property in downtown Stevenson that was being sprayed with Crossbow, and I came out of a establishment, and I was my cheeks were burning, my tongue was burning, and the guys who were applying the product were not licensed to apply it. They were landscapers who were there to get rid of the blackberries. And they could have done it by mowing. And yes, you have to keep mowing until they go away, but they will go away. These youngsters didn't even know what the heck they were doing. He showed me the Crossbow thing that oh gosh darn, the container. He wasn't wearing a mask. He wasn't wearing any protective gear whatsoever. So there is a need to look at this issue. Sidewalks can be cleaned by using either steam or hot water and vinegar and other more natural things that don't kill people and kill other things. So there have been issues in the city, more and more of them. I think you will hear from another citizen who also filed a complaint with the city. I don't think he'll be here this evening, but he did send you some information, Andy Grossman. And we have people using Roundup, which is a dangerous chemical. Just because something is said to be legal by the FDA does not mean that it is not poisonous to people. And I think 11,000 court cases against Roundup show that there are some issues with glyphosates, at least, and I'm sure other chemicals too. And what we all have to be aware of is that most of the studies that show these things don't have or are proven safe by the FDA are short-term studies that don't do anything about showing what the long-term effect of pesticide use. Here in this community, we are sprayed by DOT, we are sprayed by DNR, we are sprayed by the railroad, and all other citizens who want to buy a container of poison. So I think the city council's duties require them to protect all citizen health. And if it requires more education for our citizens and how to use pesticides and not to use it on windy days and not to use it on other people's property and other people's self, then so be it. But, you know, just because you don't feel comfortable with it doesn't mean that it isn't an issue. Thank you.
I might like to respond to Mary there. This is Cindy. And Mary, did you happen to report your exposure to the Department of Agriculture?
No, I did not.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's really an important thing to do. If you feel that somebody is applying unsafely, they should indeed be, you know, you should report your exposure to the Department of Agriculture. If you really want any movement on this issue, that's the first place to begin, because they will initiate an investigation. And even though I am aware of your incident, and I know that the day that those folks made the application, it was very windy. I do believe that, you know, I'm not going to say it was a legal application at all. I know it was too windy, but it is important for you to report your concerns and any other complaints that are concerned with the misuse or perhaps off-label application. Definitely need to contact the Department of Agriculture, because that's really where the teeth lie if you want to get some movement for what you want to do.
Thank you. And
Yes, Ann Looters. I may actually have just got the answer to this question, because I think that sounds like Cindy Solis in the audience. My question is to the council is, have you worked with noxious weed, Swain County noxious weed on this matter? I'm intimately aware of the vast cost difference between using pesticides to control not only household weeds, but noxious weeds, as opposed to having to use manual labor to pull them. And while I understand that that cost difference is probably 3- or 4-fold on, say, timberland, it can still be somewhat exorbitant on smaller parcels that you might find inside the city. So I guess my question is, can I be assured that City Council has discussed or their representative has discussed the challenges that come with the pesticide ban with the folks that have the knowledge to address that?
that's part of the discussion now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Mary. I did send something in an email, and I would like that in the record, please, Liana.
What was it, earlier today?
No, it was yesterday. It had 2 links about pesticides and the dangers to human health from the use of herbicides.
On the 15th?
Yes, I think so. Don't quote me. It might have been earlier, yes, but there were 2 links.
Can I make another comment?
Go for it.
So this is Emily again. On the topic of these certain herbicides, the ones that the public are allowed to use, the ones that are on the shelves in our hardware store and whatnot, those are the safest of the safe for
oh, please, Emily.
And the EPA has already gone through a ton of testing with these things. So it's not just willy-nilly throwing these toxic chemicals out. Yes, they are toxic. That is their purpose. But another thing to think about in terms of the risk or hazard of chemicals is the toxicity times the exposure. So, you know, if you're not exposed to it, or if you're only exposed to a very small amount, then, you know, the likelihood of getting cancer from a pesticide is very minimal. So sometimes the studies that come out don't necessarily look at that exposure. The other thing Mary brought up, vinegar, and vinegar is actually the amount of vinegar that you need to control weeds is very high. The rate at which you would use it in the
concentration.
The concentration, thank you, is extremely high and very dangerous to people. And also it doesn't work as well. It burns off the plant, but it doesn't necessarily kill the plant. And it also changes the pH in the soil. So there are some things that, yes, you can use vinegar for some things, but it's not a fix-all. Organic pesticides are some of the most toxic things that are out there. So just because it's organic or, you know, vinegar sounds like, you know, that it's safe. There's a little bit more to it.
As there is to chemicals also.
One at a time, please.
I'll reiterate that anybody who has any questions are absolutely welcome to please contact us. And if we can't answer their question, we have a lot of resources to share about and unbiased
resources.
Yes, and there are a lot of unbiased peer-reviewed papers out there and a lot of things that have shown that pesticides can cause cancer in human beings. So we can agree to disagree, but the facts are the facts. And Roundup was approved by the FDA, and look where it is now. A company lost itself because they were selling Roundup. Monsanto is no longer among us except having been bought by Bayer. So I understand where noxious weed is coming from, but noxious weed is a county entity. And this is a issue with the city and how the citizens within the city limits are being exposed to pesticides. And I did work with the schools to get pesticides out of the schools. There are ways to treat things in better instead of just for our convenience. Thanks.
Okay, is there any other comment? Because I think we've heard it all. Thank you. Council.
Sure, I'll jump in since I'm here. So there's no doubt that some of these chemicals are correlated with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, breast cancer, that sort of thing. So there are definitely dangers associated with them. And there are, as far as the cost issue goes, it is absolutely cheaper initially to get rid of weeds with chemical than it is manually. However, over the long term, when you start at it, factoring in the cost of human life and what it does to our stream health and that sort of thing, well, maybe that cost comparison is not quite as clear cut. But that being said, I am not, well, two things. I don't want to control an individual homeowner, property owner's life, even if we could. But even if we did attempt that, how in the world would we police it? We can't send somebody to everyone's garden shed looking for Roundup. We can't. Now, so as far as that discussion goes, I think that that's beyond our scope. It's just not something that we should do, or that we have the ability to get into. That being said, on a city level, as far as our city employees go, that sort of thing, if we want to have a discussion as to whether or not the city as an entity, when we are dealing with weeds, if we want to use it or not, sure, that's a discussion that I think is a genuine one. But as far as banning its use to everyone in the city limits, I don't think that's realistic.
Paul, I agree. Although I understand some people's, for lack of a better term, an allergy or some type of reaction to these chemicals. I think it really falls back, the responsibility. It's got to be a responsible use of the substance. And if there are people out there that are spraying in the wind and it is adversely affecting a neighbor, then I think that neighbor has legal ramifications or legal things that they could do through the law to address that. I don't feel comfortable taking away a landowner's right to be able to maintain his property, as long as he's doing it in a legal manner and as long as the substances he's using are legal for him to use.
Or she.
So, pardon?
He or she.
Yes. So That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, now perhaps a public education thing should go on. Like I didn't know until just moments ago that reporting these incidences to the Department of Agriculture is the right method. And many folks that I know have no idea that these chemicals cause any problems, or that there are some other methods you could use. So rather than banning them for the general public's use, I would prefer a discussion about a public education, or perhaps stop using them within the city or within by city employees for city activity. That's a discussion I'm willing to have, but I am not in the position. I'm not of the position that we should just ban them for individual use.
Go ahead.
I'm waiting on Ken.
Oh, Ken.
Mary brought up RCW chapter 7.48, which is the state nuisance provisions as between property owners and citizens. That's a very powerful tool. As she pointed out in the noise context, for something like this, that's a wonderful tool to use citizen to citizen, as far as, people's activities that disturb your ability to, maintain a healthy lifestyle. So yeah, that is a good tool, and that is a tool that is available to everybody under the RCWs.
I mostly agree with both of you. And I would like to see us, I really liked the links that the librarian at MSRC sent us. Those were, I thought they were really great. There were some really great
Great links.
some really nice ones there about what the city can do to limit its use of pesticides and how to have like a pest management plan. And that's a very different thing, I think, than we're talking about here with regulation and banning the use of pesticides on private property. So I agree with you guys about the private property thing. And I think it sounds like maybe we're all in agreement on looking at putting together a management plan for the city itself. And then we get to be the leaders in that, right? Like we get to role model that for citizens and say, hey, this is what the city is doing to step up. You guys could do this too, right? And then that's up to them.
The thing about the city portion of it is that there is planning, there is regulations, and there is monitoring. That's something that we can control. I don't think that those are the problems that we're looking for. I mean, it's a very well-regulated, needed tool. So making sure that we have the plan in place so that we are applying it appropriately feels like a good step forward.
Yeah, and it's more than that though, Scott. I mean, when I look at like the Bainbridge Island management plan and the park, there's a park-free management plan here in Tacoma that talks about like, our intention is to use less pesticides and here's how we're approaching that. That feels like a good step to me. Something like that. I'm not saying like what it needs to be, but to just commit to like, yes, this is a direction we want to go and give ourselves whatever, 6 months or however much, runway we need to put together some sort of plan or policy and invite some more public comment, that feels like a win.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be so restrictive that, you're just locked in. I mean, it's guidelines. It's guidelines on the responsible use of those pesticides.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Quick question. Like I said before, we hardly spray at all. We're not like the county. The spraying we do is on a backpack sprayer or a pump sprayer, and we're spraying sidewalks, sticker bushes, that kind of stuff. But I honestly couldn't tell you. It's probably been 4 or 5 months since we sprayed anything.
Yeah.
So I mean, we don't spray much.
So what I think is happening is that, like my worry is, well, what happens when you're not there anymore, right? Or like you have a particular protocol or way of doing things right now that it's not written down, it's not codified, it's not documented, and it's fantastic, but like what happens next, right? So it's like this transition. It's like my going off of council, like my worrying about like what happens with the capital improvement plan, right? Like how do we set ourselves up so that some of these things that we really like the city's doing an awesome job. Let's let people know what we're doing. And then that plan is in place moving forward. So it's not, to me, it doesn't feel like, hey, we're going to slap the city's hand. Don't do this, because we're already doing the right thing. It's actually sort of like being like, hey, look, we're the stewards, we're the cheerleaders, like we're the good guys. And let's like pat ourselves on the back for this and set it in place so that it gets continued. That's kind of how I'm looking at it anyway. Does that make sense?
And the other thing we spray is poison oak, because it's getting
Yeah,
bad.
yeah,
And thank you very much for that.
right.
Go ahead.
Just on a final note from the noxious weed program, I just want to make sure that everybody who may be listening understands that we do a lot more than just herbicide treatment. We really are proponents of integrated management. We help people develop their integrated management plans all the time, and that is our basic function. And so we promote that integrated use, and we would really hope that you would call on us as a resource when it comes to public education, because that is another thing that we specialize in, is public education.
That's the part that I think that we need to double down on.
Yeah.
I agree. Celebrating our limited use is fantastic. I don't see any need to change what we're doing there, but I hear you. Trying to regulate and enforce anything out in the public. But as Liana pointed out before, we put a big campaign out to help residents understand the dangers of what they were putting down the drain and how it was affecting the city as a whole. This is another opportunity for use that mechanism to spread this knowledge around to curtail the dangerous activity.
Yep.
We can time it for use when people are more apt to use them.
Like in the springtime.
Yeah, not in the middle of winter.
Except that there's planning that goes into being
Right,
ready
yes.
come spring, right? So you don't miss that and end up like another year behind.
Okay.
So direction to staff, I think. Do we have direction?
I have education opportunities, all that information on the website, information on reporting to Department of Ecology, plan and policy on basically what we're currently doing as far as the limited application. And then as far as outreach to the public, possibly incorporating something into the newsletter that we put out.
I was just gonna say, we're due for a newsletter.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd like to see actually one of these example, what are these things called? I just lost it. They're not ordinances, they're policies, right?
Policies.
Right, they're
Pesticide
like a
laws.
management plan.
Yeah, I'd like to,
Reduction strategies and things
yeah, I
like
think we
that.
should actually put, I mean, I know that staff is overwhelmed and we have a lot going on, but it does feel, I guess maybe it can be discussed at a retreat or something, but that should be in the mix, it feels like. Yeah, thank you.
So just a quick question. Does Mary have a copy of this email that we got from Jill? Is there a way that she can get that,
It's in the council packet.
which has all of these links?
It's in the council packet.
Okay.
And so the PDF version,
Okay.
if that's
Have links.
downloaded, it
Okay.
has the links
All right.
on that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that Mary had that available if she wanted to do more research on that.
Thank you both for coming down.
Thank you.
So you guys wanted to stick around for the standby pay? Are you guys fine with moving that up?
Yeah.
Discussion?
Sure.
Okay. Leon?
Okay. So standby pay. With Carl leaving, the Public Works Director currently carries the phone during the weekdays and is not compensated for overtime in it. It's just a part of his salary. And the Public Works employees rotate the weekend on call and holiday on call period on an equitable basis. And so prior to 2018, staff was paid $500 a month for that. Basically, when you got certified, you got the additional $500 a month and you were inserted into the on-call rotation. And then in 2018, we included that $500 per month as part of their salary and instituted an hourly on-call pay for being on standby. And that is then in addition to their salary that they're already collecting.
So you say the salary, are you talking about our hourly employees, or are you talking the public works director?
I'm talking about the hourly.
So you
employees.
incorporated that $500 a month into as a kind of like a shift differential almost.
It used to be, and
Okay.
now it is part of their salary.
But only if they have the certification, right?
No, it's part of your salary. If you don't have the certification, you're just not on call.
I see.
In the personnel policy, there's a time period for you to get your certification.
Okay.
So that requirement is still there. You're just, again, not eligible for the on-call status until you get that.
Okay, so they are currently getting the additional pay in their salary then?
They're currently getting $2 and
24 cents.
24 cents. Actually, no, so it's $2.13 right now for 2021 that they're currently collecting. For 2022, it's $2.24. It'll, with the 5% COLA, it'd be $2.24. So when they're on call, they get $2.13 an hour for carrying the on-call phone when the city is not open, when there's no public works employees working at the city.
So after 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, basically 4:30 to 6 a.m.
Okay.
The part that's driving this whole conversation is that we're asking the crew to stretch out the amount of time that's spent on call.
Right.
Before it was Friday at 5 until
Yeah.
what, Monday at 8 or
6.
6, something like that. Just because in the fact that the public works worker carried the phone the rest of the time, it's just always been that way. And it dates back, I think when Gail was here and he had the big machine in his house. Well, times have changed and that we need to take a look at the way the on-call shift is doing. So we have asked staff or the crew, public works crew, to stretch out their on-call to an entire week. That's
rather than just the weekends.
right.
Mhm.
And that's for everyone. And it's on a rotational basis. Obviously, with all the things, I'm going to be on vacation because I'm going to cover, plan ahead, all of those things. It's, well, let's talk about this standby pay. Absolutely. And that's where we are. You are asked to not drink. You are asked to be within 30 minutes. And for that, you should be compensated.
Yes, agreed.
Agreed.
And one of the things that has concerned me with someone carrying it on a regular basis is the lack of sleep that happens. I mean, when you have that phone, you're prepared for it to go off at any time. And
Having worked many hours of on-call status, the only real detriment to that personally is what you do with your free time. You know, if you're locked into having a 30-minute response, that means, well, you know, I can't go to Portland, can't go up to the Dalles, you know, so I'm locked in.
careful what projects you start.
That's right. I don't drink alcohol, but if I did drink alcohol, I wouldn't be able to drink alcohol because I may at any time have to go out and do something. Those are the inconveniences of being on call. Sleep, nah, I'm not going with that one. You know.
I'm just relaying what happens in my household.
Sure. But the only time you're gonna wake up is if that phone rings. I mean, you're not gonna lay there and worrying about, oh man. Well,
I was gonna say, there's
unless it's getting cold and you know, it might
it's
start
raining like cats and
snowing.
dogs.
Right.
There are definite.
Yeah.
Everybody is different.
Yes.
But for the most part, there's a perception that, you know, you got this anchor on you. Well, you do, but you don't. So, but I do agree that there needs to be compensation for that because it does dramatically affect your family life.
And so again, this is extending that inconvenience and that restriction. And in here there were a couple that I needed to call back. And then when I calculated the average, I took out some numbers as well. When I calculate in all of the let's see, when I run the average on all of the places that pay the standby pay, and I called, it was South Bend that I called back. Leavenworth is still negotiating it. They're in union negotiations right now, so I don't have an answer on that one. But when I recalculated the average, it comes up to $3.03 an hour when I kept in the low and kept in the high. So the high is to 9.0 and it comes out, it's like $8 and something when I average that hourly rate. And then Kittitas was the low, it worked out to, I think, 94 cents an hour. So when I added those two back in with all of the numbers, the average is $3.03 an hour.
Is there an argument, like, is this just until we hire a new public works director, or is this gonna be?
Well, and so that's another part of the discussion. One of the things that the city receives as a benefit for having an employee be on call for a full week is they would do the rotation, they would do the rounds on a daily basis, and they would become more familiar with the system. And so you have more people more familiar with the system and the nuances of what's going on, and more people cross-trained in all facets of the system. And so you have a more robust crew that's.
And they're doing that for a full week at a.
And they're doing it, and they would be doing it for a full week at a time. And so,
Yeah.
so that's another question for council is, right now it's an emergency basis. And they have not started doing it yet. And the current job description talks about weekend on call only. So if we wanted to make this a permanent change, then the job descriptions would need to change. And I don't know, I don't have an answer as far as whether or not we want to make it permanent. I feel like we should try it out. What?
I like the idea of the equity of the whole thing.
Yes.
Equal across the board.
Yes.
Yes, it sucks
right.
for a week.
And part of the reason why I'm also kind of hemming and hawing is I don't know what public works director we're going to get either. With the way that the hiring situation is going nationwide, I am not very optimistic that we will get someone with certifications.
Well, I have no problem with making it on a permanent basis. Because that allows them as employees to know that I've got on-call status on this week in the calendar, and so that they have more control over their personal lives if it's that way. If it's hit and miss, I've been there, done that, and it really is not conducive to a good personal life.
What do these guys want?
Spider
They would like to see you approve.
We really at first wanted to stay the same, just, the weekends. I brought up the scenario, I would take the phone like Carl did during the Monday through Thursday and not do weekends anymore and let the guys do weekends. That's kind of what we thought, but then when we talked to Liana, doing the week, we just want to make sure if we do the week, because we'll be doing more versus the 3 days, we'll be doing 7 days, that we want to be compensated more because you're on call 7 days a week. Shoot, we had a water main break up by your house. We could drain that reservoir in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I know, my basement was that way.
Yeah, exactly. You got to have somebody there fast.
Yeah.
So.
and that's another caveat too, is there's not very many jobs that require you to be on call. And public works, especially when you're talking about people's water, drinking water, and sewer, that's one of them. Public works is one of them. And the employees are asked to do a lot on a regular basis in conditions, especially when you're on call. It's typically when the conditions are worse, that they're asked to come in and, I mean, similar to linemen for the PUD. And so we just want to make sure that, and we are in essence changing their working conditions by asking them to take on a longer standby period.
I think you guys are all arguing past yes.
Right.
Yes.
I think
I think-
we're all in
Right.
agreement that I think that
Yeah.
we're good with the request, and my question is like, back to your comment for a second, Gordy, like, do you want it to be a week on, a week off? Do you want it to be a half a week on, a half a week off? Do you want it to be
Well,
somebody
there's
who
five.
wants to do the
Well-
weekends, does the weekends? You know, like,
So there's 5 people right now. And it would rotate throughout each
Fine.
employee.
So you get a month off with no call.
Right, right.
Basically 4 weeks off without a call.
Yes,
Well, without being on call.
yes.
Not
yes.
necessarily,
Right,
not
right.
necessarily.
Hopefully
not
without being called
out.
in.
There's a difference between
Yeah.
being on call and being
Being
called.
Yes,
out.
yes, yes.
but, and I go back, I mean, like, yeah, I hear you, and is that what they want?
Right.
Initially, no.
Right.
Everybody wants to stay on the weekends.
Right.
And like you just said, it's a week, everybody has it. Well, we do the same thing on the weekends. I go through the calendar, everybody has a weekend, it's the exact same thing. I mean, everybody gets their turn.
Okay,
So is there anybody who wants to do during the week? Or
Well,
of
that's
those
why instead of, well, because it's always been that way and it makes a lot more sense to just start rotating it.
I'm not sure it does. I think it makes sense to have working conditions that people like. If somebody wants to do during the week and other people want to do on the weekend and we can make that happen, why wouldn't we make that happen?
I'm on call at my job and I don't get paid for not.
I think, so
Why wouldn't we give them choice? If we give them choice and it works out and all the days are covered, what do we care?
So one of the concerns is then you have one person getting 16 hours of standby pay and potential call out and everyone else only having, sorry, 16 days and everyone else only having 3. And so
so the equity is not.
the equity from a pay standpoint is slightly skewed.
Why wouldn't we just say, okay, who's interested in volunteering for the pool of weekend only, knowing that you're gonna have less days? Who's interested in volunteering for the pool of, this is gonna be
I'm not
during the
interested in
week?
making that topsy, that,
It feels like we're taking choice away instead of giving choice when we really don't have to me.
okay, well, I disagree.
Okay,
I like the idea of having week sessions, a week-long session. Plus, it gets more familiarity with the system and we have a much more rounded crew.
Paul, you're awful quiet.
I'm just listening. I've worked several jobs where I had to be on standby and it sucks. So I think that I think there's some good points. It's for me, it's up to, I guess, the crew. Number one gets the most vote. Liana for coordinated it all would get a vote and the mayor approves it. It's kind of where I am. And whatever those 3 entities decide on, I'm all for.
I mean, it's a top-down management approach versus a bottom-up management approach. Either way, we're agreeing to pay additional dollars. I mean, that's a good thing, right? We're all in agreement on that. And it's just a question of how it gets implemented.
And I'm of the position that you guys decide upon yourselves. It's fine with me.
Well, who's the you guys?
You're
Well,
talking
first,
about
the crew would be the first, the most important decider, in my opinion. And then Liana, because she's going to have to be the coordinator, and then the final decision goes to Scott on this one.
So wait, I just want clarification. I don't coordinate the standby or on call. So I just implement, I will just be implementing the salary in the system. So
Okay, well, I'll leave you out then. It's between the
Okay, I
crew,
guess,
the crew and the mayor then. That's kind of my position on this one.
Well-
Yeah, you guys decide. I don't care. But you get more money either way.
Are we a union shop?
No, we're not. We're not. But part of the reason why we're not is
Employees happy.
right, exactly, is because we have these discussions
Yeah.
and keep them in the loop and try to have this. And so, again, if you're not comfortable making any decision tonight, or if we can't come to agreement tonight, whatever agreement we do come to, I would like to be retroactive to whenever they start
Yeah.
changing the schedule.
Yeah.
So to speak. So
Yeah, that's fair.
So I don't want to put pressure on you to make a decision tonight if you're not comfortable with the final answer.
I would
So
like.
If
to
you want more
get-
information, then
I
that's
would,
fine.
well, I would like to get the input from our other two council members.
And I'd like to get the input from the rest of the guys.
Yeah,
Now that we've decided, yes, we're gonna pay, that may change minds.
And it may, you're right.
Right, and so I guess the question is what amount would you pay? So like I said, when I recalculated the numbers, it came up to 303. So it's a different
Oh,
average.
it's not this 267?
No, so when so the 267 is one average. When I recalculated the average with all of the numbers for standby pay, including, was it South Bend?
High low.
Yeah, and then I added in the high low, it came up to 303.
I think 267. That's
right.
that's throwing out those outliers and averaging, and it's still higher than Cascade Locks or North Bonneville.
Right.
That feels fair to me. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't like being below average on anything.
I like the $3 myself. but
Really?
That's not.
I like higher.
Or they would like white salmon spec.
Yeah, we want that.
So,
Yeah.
and also I threw in there too, like as far as an impact go to the budget, the increase again is only $2,700, and that's across it's across streets, water, and wastewater. And that's with 267. And so if you go up, it's just slightly more. It's not that big of an impact to the overall budget based on what we currently have. And so I just wanted council to know that this isn't a budget breaker, I guess.
Okay. What do you think, Dave?
I think we need to hear from the other employees.
Mhm.
Or let me put it this way, I don't necessarily need to hear from the other employees, but I think the other employees need to be heard. Now, whether that is you, Amy, sitting down with them all and talking
Wait a
to
minute,
them.
we're blurring the lines here.
Yeah,
between
that
the job
was-
titles. We had a staff meeting between
Okay.
Liana and myself and the
Oh, okay.
entire public works crew. We
Oh, okay,
talked
I
about-
didn't know that.
We hashed it out
Okay.
and ran it up the flagpole. There was some resistance at first, but we talked it out and
Okay, I didn't realize that. I'm
everybody
sorry,
was,
Scott.
came around. So
Okay.
And then I talked to staff as well today about what was proposed, and then that's also why public works employees are present as well, because I can't explain to you better why they're asking and what job they do and what the need is. They're the better advocates for themselves.
So my position, I say $3 an hour, and you guys sort it out yourself how that gets divvied up.
okay, well, like I said, there are there are differences in job titles, I guess, for lack of a better word. I feel like we've done that from an HR perspective. I feel we're all on the same page. The crew was receptive if there was more money. And I said, I'm with you.
There you go.
I think we should give more money. I think we should we should update the job descriptions. We should put it in place as an emergency status, not permanent until we have a new public works director, and get input on that. And I would prefer to see it not a top-down approach to managing a weekly standby rotation, but see what the employees want to do in terms of how they want to rotate.
And that part we've done.
That's not what I'm hearing.
Did you guys
Well,
do-
I know we've all talked and, just like you said, if the money's there, if there's more money there that, week on, week on, or, 'cause from what everybody I've gathered, talked to, we're, good.
So we're good with week long, is that what you're saying?
That's from my understanding, yes.
At the $3 an hour? Is that what you were
Okay,
talking?
if you guys are willing to accept that.
Need to talk to.
That's what I would,
Because we could, yeah.
I would agree
This-
with that.
Nothing's ready for approval tonight anyway. It'd have to be a resolution.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I would agree with, the $3 an hour at week rotations. That way we get better training with our guys too. Not to say that they're not well trained, but
right.
the more experience you have in the other aspects of it, the better off we are.
I mean, and from my perspective, everyone has their specializations and their comfort levels. And if you have something that requires you to go outside of that, you then become better at it. And then if you do it on a regular basis, it becomes easier.
I want to drive a snowblower.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing.
Of course, I already plow my street, so what am I saying?
Come do my house.
It gets real boring after a while.
Gets cold too.
Heater works pretty good.
Okay.
Okay, so
Thank
we'll
you.
have a resolution next month.
Right.
So what do you
Good.
guys, I missed
Okay,
the part on
so-
the wage.
$3.
$3. And then, I'll update the job descriptions currently to reflect, potential emergency status, within the job descriptions, and then we can see how it goes and revise and reassess later as far as whether or not that's a permanent change to the job descriptions after it's been in effect and after the public works director is here. and
Once
we
you have
see-
your public works director back on task, then he can sit down with the crew and
They
can sit down.
They can sit down.
they can, yeah.
Yes, yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Where were we? You're more than willing to, you're welcome to stick around if you like.
Okay.
So, we
Sure.
had a,
Glad you guys got to see me.
yeah, the pleasure was yours. We were looking at a plan update.
Client update. Oh my God.
7A. We already did that.
No, we haven't done the plan update yet.
Oh, that was the rates.
So the plan update, rather than all the words and stuff for the numbers on how we've been doing for Influent, I included that chart that I used for rates. And so that gives you a better indication of how the numbers have been going for our BOD load, which again is the number that we are most concerned with. We also monitor for a lot of other things at the plant on a monthly basis. But again, BOD is the one that we've had the issue with, which triggered the administrative order and the changes to the plant. We've been doing various updates. Let's see. We contacted Ron Mueller, who did the training when we first took over the plant. I meant to update this, apparently didn't grab the right one. But when we do, he will be available for additional training. So that, and the way that he's going to do it is great because we'll have a year or two of experience, and we can walk through and ask him questions related to specifically to our plant versus just a general training.
Awesome.
And he's owed us that, and that will be great, and it will allow us to again make more tweaks and improve the plant going forward. And then again, just the funding picture is there, which is similar to what was presented in the rates. And the goal is to have the plant not come in at a $9.6 million cost, but we'll see how that happens, if we can make that happen. That's it.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, now the Park Plaza contract.
Yes. So I don't know if anyone remembers,
It's very quiet, it's like
year.
an intimate setting now.
right? Us and the 5 attendees and however many on YouTube. So in going through the audit this year, one of the things that was pointed out was that we can't spend money on property that we don't own or manage. And TAC funding. And the city plans on leveraging TAC funding for the Park Plaza, but we don't own it, but we plan on managing it. But we don't have an agreement in place. And so this agreement would help us spend money to manage it. One of the challenges though is we have funds that have been spent in 2021 on that project for some engineering. And we currently have a contract that goes to next year as well. And so we
With
can,
them?
with this downtown association, but it's for that property. And so if we can approve this and get this agreement in place prior to the end of the year, it just helps with the overall audit. In short. In talking with Adam, there are some things that were changed and he made some comments as far as what some of the county commissioners would like to see changed or removed. And if there's no objections to removing some of this language, that is what we're here to discuss. I think one of
You hadn't
the,
sent this to me, had you?
no, I got it, I think he sent it to me Friday. He said he was gonna do revisions and possible other revisions.
'Cause I
And
haven't seen
yeah,
this.
no, I haven't. Yeah.
The substance of this is the same though, right? That we're gonna take over management of that space. We're gonna take over maintenance
Correct.
of
And
that space for 30 years.
correct.
Some
One
amount of time.
of the concerns of the board is the level that we will maintain it at. And they want to make sure that we have enough cash and resources and reserves to maintain it.
The county commissioner board?
Yes.
Oh, that's so the pot calling the kettle black.
Mhm.
That's hilarious.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. So what does that require on our part?
so one of the clauses, I think, is to set up a reserve. And let's see, I'm trying to remember that, find that clause.
Contingency fund?
Yeah, the contingency fund, default and or restoration contingency fund or general maintenance and adequate reserve. So it's on
What
Okay.
number?
4.10, 4.10
And 4.11.
and 4.11. Yeah.
Okay, and I've got a problem with 4.6 too, so. This is the one that jumped out at me. In the green.
Gotcha. I see that. Yeah.
Do you want to do that one first, or should I still look at the adequate reserves?
What's that?
Which one do you want to address first?
Start at the top. 4.6.
4.6. And that there are adequate alternatives for housing any homeless population to ensure such ordinances is enforceable.
That's the Martin versus City of Boise case. That's why that's in there. There's a Ninth Circuit case that said that you can't prohibit camping unless you have adequate other facilities for people to sleep. Because it's a violation of the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment to say you can't sleep. I think there's other ways this could be put together.
My
I see what you're
problem
doing.
with that is that why is it the city's responsibility so that we can have this clause? Why is it our responsibility to ensure we have other things in place for homeless people? Before this can go
Like
forward?
that should
I
be
don't
county?
understand that.
We've already gone through
We have gone through
the no
this.
camping ordinance,
Yeah.
and that's essentially this.
Right, yeah. Are you saying that should be the county's responsibility? Or are you saying nobody should have that responsibility?
No. I'm just saying that if in our no camping ordinance, we're covered on that.
So if the ordinance is not creating an encampment, it would be covered. Or could we include it? Because it's, I mean, it's.
Well, you're not
Public.
prohibiting camping in the
creating
entire
it.
city.
Right, it
You're
would
just
be.
saying in that location.
Right, okay.
And, you can, there's time, place, and manner restrictions you can enforce on particular areas that you can prohibit camping. I don't know, as far as the adequate alternatives, I don't know if we want to commit to that.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
But we can certainly prohibit camping in that area. And then it's going to be up to, constitutional review to determine if we've allowed camping elsewhere. I mean, and it's housing any homeless population. You don't have to it doesn't require, Martin doesn't require you to house homeless populations. You just can't have a citywide prohibition of camping.
Right.
Unless you provide other alternatives. That's the law.
Right.
But
So
why
that's
does that-
overreach.
Yeah, but why does that have to be included in this MOU?
It
It's
doesn't.
not just part of the anti-camping.
It doesn't.
Well,
Thank you.
you can read Adam's comment there.
Yeah, Adam's taken Martin and gone a little too far. He's saying that if you're gonna prohibit camping in one location, you have to provide this adequate housing, but that's not true, because if there's other areas of the city where people can camp, then Martin doesn't apply, because they can go camp there.
So,
Thank you.
and I can get more clarification from Adam on that and bring it back. Do we want to have a special meeting to talk about this with the Board of County Commissioners? Because it has been so long
That'd probably be.
and
good
this is a
idea.
new twist.
And I can talk to Adam about that provision, a way to wordsmith that.
Okay,
I mean, I don't think I understand why he wrote that, but I
right.
think it's a little overkill. a little.
Well, his last line says would likely welcome collaboration on homeless accommodation in the city county.
And maybe that's a good thing
That
to
would
do
be-
anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be fantastic. We
Right.
want to do that anyway.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And maybe that could be said in that section, instead of the city shall ensure there's gonna be
Right.
adequate homeless, housing, that the parties will ensure there's adequate homeless housing.
Get some collaboration there.
Right.
Okay, thank you. That takes care of.
Or
mine.
other camping alternatives, something to that
Yeah.
effect. I mean, that, and they don't necessarily provide the housing again.
And what are you thinking about the reserves? Is that possible for us? Does that feel appropriate
The-
or onerous?
It just feels weird that you will give us $25,000 that we will not touch. It'll be in a separate account. And in 30 years, if you renew, you can have half of it back.
Yeah.
It just seems weird to fork over money and not have management of that, as opposed to just proving that we have this reserve in place.
Yeah.
Seems like it's
I
mentioned
would agree. It
twice.
feels
And
onerous.
well, so initially, the way that I was pitching sort of the adequate reserves is basically doing an asset system of what's the cost of the asset and how much do you need to have in reserves? I mean, 25,000 might be too much, 25,000 might not be enough. But letting the cost of the park kind of dictate and the assets that you have in the park kind of dictate what that level is. And so that's why the language under the reserves was talking about how it will be calculated.
Well, this, again, now that
which isn't variable. It is very concrete as far as like, this is the process that you use to calculate what your reserves will be, and that is very auditable versus coming up with just a flat fee.
So now that I'm looking at it, so there's, the city will maintain adequate reserves for maintenance. That's part of 410. 411 says, if you guys decide not to do this anymore, we would rather that there was money available to put it back the way it was.
Yeah.
Can it just be
Yeah, we're paying them $25,000.
in case we pull out early?
Which the county shall maintain in a separate interest-bearing account.
And this was a sticking point the last go around.
Oh, shoot.
And then they want it increased every 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, that seems like a lot.
That seems like that needs a lot more work.
At 20, what? These two agencies have worked together forever. Has there ever been an occasion where we have defaulted?
That's what I was thinking, like, look at our track record.
I think maybe I don't know.
Maybe we should have it, the county default.
Well, maybe that we should have a little more conversation about this.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. I think, I like the idea of getting together with the commissioners
Okay.
and,
And we do want to see this happen. We just
Right.
want
Yeah.
to be, we want them to be a good partner.
let's get it
too.
worked out
Yeah.
and get it moving.
Are there dates, or do you want me to do a doodle poll for availability?
Let's,
Who needs to be there?
oh, we wanted to get this done before the end of the year, huh?
I know.
I would keep it, you don't need it. to
I
be
mean, I
very
can
big, keep it
see
small.
how much spent. And I mean, so in 2021, we spent $2,000. So
So do we have to
Worst
get this
comes-
done, or do we wait until?
worst
we get
comes
it?
to worst, that has to come out of the general fund next year. Or let's see. I should probably take that out of the general fund for 2021 until this is approved. And I can talk with Kelly to see what she's looking to spend in 2022 for it.
Because on one hand, I'm kind of leaning towards getting the new members involved, but there was budget concerns, but it's.
Right, well, and I can, yeah, and I can talk further with the auditor on, we're working on this agreement. In concept, we agree, it's the details that are being worked out.
And you'll
You
get
don't,
with
you don't want
Adam.
to just, you
Yeah, I
don't
can
want
talk
to just,
to
you
Adam,
two meet with the commissioners and make it happen?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I don't
I would love
really
to get
think you
the-
need counsel.
Hmm?
I don't really think you need counsel to be involved in the negotiation. I mean, we just did that. You got our feedback. Just,
We like the idea,
Okay.
just get these things hammered out.
Okay.
Well, maybe not all
Bring it
council,
back.
but
Not all council, all, so not a special meeting that I can get with Adam. Ken, did you want to be involved as well, Dave and Scott?
Sure.
I
Paul,
absolutely.
did you want to be involved? or
I'm
you
sitting on
okay?
both sides of the fence on this one, so I'm absolutely gonna be involved.
So I would love to be involved. It just depends on timing because I'm going to be out of the area for most of next month.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Because yes, I do like that the tenor is the same, that we're very excited about this project. It's just, we've got to make sure that we don't run afoul of the auditor.
Right, right. Okay.
And you said you wanted to put off the ARPA discussion?
Yeah, not all council members are here, was one of them. The other one, I had a heck of a time with updates today with technology, and so it took a couple of hours. And so I was not able to prepare the memo and the data that I wanted to. However, I will have a meeting on Monday talking with an agency that does community engagement and specifically for ARPA. And then I think you can have it reimbursed by ARPA funding. I'll talk with them to see how much it costs though. So, I mean, that's a nice little niche, huh? So we'll see.
I want that stuff.
Right.
It's free money.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I'll include the information too about what each project is and what each item is too in that. So it's not just names and numbers.
Okay, cost allocation policy.
Okay. So as part of the audit, it was pointed out that the equipment services fund wasn't used or wasn't included in the original cost allocation. When we ran the numbers, it was an impact of about $7,000. And so the recommendation was to change the policy to include it or to reword the policy so that the costs are more equitably allocated. And so the change was to add the equipment services fund, or basically to take out section 3 where it says transactions related to the equipment services fund will be excluded. And so that means that the equipment services fund is included and it will be allocated to the equipment services fund as part of the cost allocation.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what the auditor's recommending.
Yeah.
So.
All right, if there's no more discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2021-385, revising the financial policy as presented.
Second.
First and second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Very good. You, that integrated planning grant.
So, sorry, Ben is unable to be here tonight. And so I will be covering this one. One of the projects that we've been talking about is the Columbia Avenue realignment. And this is the grant that pays, it's a 100% grant, zero match required. So it's $200,000 to do a feasibility study with an economic analysis on the cleanup of the brownfields and analysis of how contaminated it is or may be for us to relocate Columbia Avenue. And the reason why this is eligible is the property on the, thank you, southeast corner of the intersection with Second and Columbia used to be a gas station, service station, and in conjunction with a brownfields grant, there was contamination identified near Columbia Avenue. And so we are anticipating additional soil samples from Columbia to show also contamination. And so that is what makes this eligible. And we've been engaging all of the property owners. And they are currently on board with looking at it and seeing how much it's going to cost.
And this is the lot adjacent to.
This is next. So the two lots next to the dentist. And so in essence.
But on the north side of First.
Yes.
Yes, on the north side of First. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, and this is the grant. There's the draft agreement is in the packet, and it was written, the statement of work was written with the city as well as the consultant, because the Department of Ecology has realized that the most successful projects have those statement of works written in collaboration. So that's why the timing is kind of at the same time with both the grant and then the contract.
Cool.
So this was a grant that was originally, went through the county.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
It was not necessarily to identify or clean up brownfield, but maybe say, we think it might be a problem and that would pay for the cleanup. So this is not necessarily pointing fingers. It's an opportunity to say, make sure that it's not. The other part that is, I wanted to make sure that we said out loud is that this did not start out as a witch hunt. This is not looking for a way to say you, the collective you have done something wrong, you business owner. This is a tool that was low-hanging fruit for us for a project that we identified as low-hanging fruit. So far, we're finding a way to decide if this is a good idea or not.
Yes.
And the brownfields grant required the property owner to reach out and agree for that. And in one way, it shines light on an issue, which can be scary. But just because you don't do the analysis doesn't mean that it's not there. And so even if we didn't do the analysis or didn't do any of this, the issue would still be there. And so the goal of this is to see what the costs are to mitigate any potential issues to prevent it from continuing.
Okay. Awesome.
I would entertain a motion.
Oh, well, I'm just trying to figure out how to, it's a draft of the grant, correct?
The motion is
There's a
just the
motion
grant
right
agreement.
there.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with, to approve the grant toxic cleanup integrated planning grant agreement with the Department of Ecology for the Columbia Avenue redevelopment project, the amount of $200,000 is presented.
I'll second.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Done, seconded.
Okay, so first and second, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. So this is hand in hand with the next one, correct?
Correct, yeah. So the next one is the contract for the consultant to do that exact same work. And it's again, a fully funded contract. So the $200,000 will be fully reimbursed by the grant. And at the time that I put this motion in there, I didn't know if we'd get the grant in time. There was a glitch that they had to change in the computer on there, and then so we couldn't get the data in for that.
So far we've
Okay, so-
voted to accept the grant, and now we're voting to spend the grant.
Exactly.
I'd move to, are we accepting this professional service?
The motion's right there on,
It's in the agenda.
on the. Okay.
Now I gotta go back to the agenda.
You know, the
I move to approve the contract with Mall Foster Alongi for services in the amount of $200,000 as presented, with a notice to proceed authorized after execution of the Department of Ecology Integrated Planning Grant Contract.
Second.
all right, first and second, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Got that one. You said you didn't have a chance to make the memo.
I did not have a chance to make the memo for the fire hall property, nor present it either, so that was one, we can still discuss it.
Oh, we're gonna discuss it.
Okay.
Oh, we're absolutely gonna discuss this. The reason that this is even on the agenda is because it was suggested that city staff and city council, at the time that this property was purchased, did so in haste and without due diligence. And even though I wasn't here for that, I was kind of around for that. And there was lots of work put into, there was matrices and visits, and a lot of work went into this to make sure that we bought what we felt was the best property, given the matrix that we had to work with.
There were several sites that you looked at, weren't there?
And-
Seven, I believe.
All of this information minus the matrix, because that is still confidential as far as the properties that were looked at. all of this information is on the city website regarding the fire hall. I think it goes, I think even the 2013 study, the initial study in 2013, this 2016 strike team, and then even the more recent proposal for the fire hall is up as well. I think it's 2018, 2019. They're all running together.
But wanted to address the fact that there was a lot of work done on this and there was due diligence done on this. So the spot where the engineer put the fire hall, yes, that does require some over excavation, and that was a cost that was shocking. As has been discovered since then with some admittedly not super scientific geotech studies, moving that building into many other spots on that property will not have that same requirement for over excavation. So to try to drive public opinion on that one part of the property was egregious. So wanted to make sure that it was heard out loud that city staff and city council did not fall asleep at the wheel in this particular situation.
And we still plan to use the site
For
for
a
the
fire hall.
hall.
That's right.
Again,
That's
so
very
Rob
important,
was
yeah.
talking about earlier bandwidth where his time has been eaten up, and of course, our staff time has been eaten up with the treatment plant. And so again, once some of these things start coming off our plate, we are going to be working back on that as well.
There you go.
There are no plans to use this as a site for a homeless encampment.
Mary has her hand.
Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, thank you very much. Since I've lived here for 31 years, I'll put in my 2 cents on the fire hall proposal. I think that's a silly place to put a fire hall in a street that's actually supposed to be 25 miles per hour, even though first or second street is 2, and it is a hard street to get in and out of in the first place with access, with no easy access to 14 and from both sides. I will still propone for the corner, Columbia, and between First and Second, where the dentist's office is, even though there are allegations of a brownfield. I'm not sure if I heard Leanna correctly that she said there's some assumptions being made. I remember when Crumpacker bought that property from the county, and he was going to put a facility, a senior facility, actually a memory unit there, because we do not have something like that in our community. And just in case in the future, if different decisions are made and perhaps we find a better site that's more suitable to a fire hall, where you can have access in and out on First and Second Street, and you can drive through the hall, and it would be a nice addition to our downtown corridor. I'm not quite sure why we're putting it out somewhere in the boonies instead of having it where it is. And EMS might want to move there since they don't have any room for expansion now that vacation homes are being built next door to their hall there. So, I know there's issues with that lot, but it has been bought. There might be some other things that could be built there. And personally, I do think we do need a memory unit here for our senior citizens so they can stay in the community close to their relatives if the need arises. On the other hand, a fire hall should be accessible and should have access to main arteries, easy access. And I think we could build a nice fire hall on that corner. So there's a lot of issues, and a lot of work may have been done, but I don't think the community knows that quote, a lot of work had been done on that piece of property. And I don't know if this is possible in future acquisitions, but is there some kind of insurance you can buy just in case things don't turn out the way you thought they would when you bought the property as the city, basically? So personally, I'll be moving back to Stevenson. I don't want to see a fire hall on Rock Creek. I don't think that's appropriate. I think it should be on the main strip where the first responders have easy access, egress and ingress to the fire hall, etc. So I think you have a lot of work to make this work in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Did you guys have any other comment? I know that Leona wanted to have a memo for you all, but I didn't want to wait any longer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was here for that process and we did a lot of work. And I think it's a good site.
Well, and then the part about, yes, that was part of the filter was, yeah, proximity to downtown. There was a lot of things that were put on the list of things to look at, priorities, and then finding the one that fit the most.
So I think one question is, does council want to make a statement in the paper regarding this project?
It's on public record. It's been.
I don't think anything more is needed.
Yeah. I think the minutes are enough of a public record.
Okay, thank you for that opportunity. All right. Leona, it looks like we want to spend some money.
Oh my gosh. And I apologize for the paragraph of a motion.
And this is required. part of the
Yes.
motion? Oh, boy.
It was really fun reading the bids too. So, there are 7 procurement memos for the 8 items. One of them, the fine bubble diffusers, are going in 2 different locations. And so, yeah, this is the equipment that we're putting on order.
So
It's happening.
exciting.
I know,
So
right? Ready to go.
exciting. Where's our, oh wait, where's our thing? I only have.
Well, the A-frame got erased. That was a bummer, but let's see what she's gonna come up
You
with.
know, this button. Wait, no.
I was looking actually for the Gantt chart of
Oh, that
the
one.
milestones to be like, hey, look what we did.
We've been talking about wringing hands. Think about it. From the,
What was the name of the
Now,
gal?
now we haven't actually done it yet. I mean, nobody's made this crazy motion yet.
But we've been right sizing forever.
There you
Yeah,
go.
there we go.
So,
yeah, on time. Look at that.
I mean, not far behind.
Oh, yeah. Yay,
Yeah.
team.
So are you ready to entertain a motion?
I am. You guys want to just
I
dive right
just
in?
want you to know, thank you very much for all that reading material, because
Oh.
I did go over every one
And
of
I
those.
really apologize for the lateness of.
My goodness. It was unbelievable. So
Yeah.
I would move to award the equipment procurement for the wastewater treatment plant phase 1 as follows. Section 4311-33 rotary load blowers to Arizon in the amount of $189,857.87. Section 432500 submersible screw centrifugal pumps to APSCO Trillium in the amount of $85,522.42. Section 462133 in-channel rotary drum screen to Lakeside in the amount of $188,382.38. Section 462300 grit removal equipment to Smith and Lovelace in the amount of $184,592.42. Section 464134 vertical turbine mixers to EnviroPax in the amount of $40,872.15. Section 465133 fine bubble diffusers, paragraph 1.05.b new aeration basin and alternate 1, section 46.51.33, fine bubble diffusers, hyphen paragraph 1.05.c oxidation ditch to Aquarius in the amount of $90,037.20. And section 466656 ultraviolet disinfection system to Trojan in the amount of $209,476.50.
Yeah.
And I will
Second.
You got it. It's all you.
Right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're doing it.
Okay.
Yeehaw.
And so then, the next item is the contract with Wallace Engineering for the construction phase services, for the amount not to exceed, $1,057,606. And that's for, and it's through, December of 2023.
And it's phased.
Yeah, so they have a contract to manage that equipment bidding and that equipment portion. And then this is for the construction phase. And part of the reason for that too was I didn't know when I was gonna be on contract with Ecology. And so now that we're closer to a contract on Ecology, I'm more secure in having this contract and starting on that, yes.
So,
Right.
okay, well, let's take care of this part first, then I'll ask my question. Who's gonna make the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Wallace Engineering for wastewater treatment plant upgrade project construction phase services in the amount not to exceed $1,057,000, $57,606. Big number.
Do it, Paul.
I second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 So if everything goes as planned, I know that's a lot of ifs.
When everything goes as planned.
When do we lift the moratorium?
So we were talking about that, possibly by the end of next year. It all depends on how far along we are with construction. And there might be a risk game that we play between when we're far enough along for construction and someone could submit a building permit and not build for the plant to come online. So.
Until the plant's finished.
Right, until the plant, right.
But they can
So-
start their building permit process prior to us finishing the plant, in theory.
Yes.
Can we play the thing button again?
Now we do it.
You are number one. Today is your day.
$1 million.
Right? Yeah.
Oh.
Did you vote on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it went through. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, we do have some informational items for you to peruse. All right, so now some updates from staff.
Carl's update, and he is still here, is in the packet. Let me see. Yeah, they're working on crosswalk stripe painting. And I mentioned the wastewater treatment plant class that will be coming. And then other projects that are basically waiting for next year. And then the Hegwald Well Treatment Recommendation Report. I do know that he met with the consultant earlier this week, and so that should be wrapping up and be closed out soon. I think the costs for treatment of the well to put it on as a permanent source was the last part of that report that was needed.
Is that up off of Ryan Allen up there? Okay.
So that's the Public Works Director's report. For me, I attended a meeting last night with the Bridge of the Gods subcommittee. And so that consists of the Port of Cascade Locks, Bob Hamlin from the county, Kevin Waters from the EDC, and then myself. And they also had their bridge engineer there talking about the bridge strengthening project, which ended 10 days early. And so they were able to lift that earlier, which also allowed the city to save money because we were able to, when we haul our loads to Hood River, they use Bridge of the Gods because the Hood River Bridge also has some weight restrictions right now. And so we were able to only have to do one trip or one day of trips with the restrictions instead of 2 or more. Let's see what else. They're working on determining a path forward, a long-term path forward, based on what level of funding we want to provide. Whether it's, do we want to cut back on funding, which means a lower life cycle and higher, an earlier replacement cost, keep it as is, or spend more money, increase the life cycle of the current bridge, and delay the replacement of that bridge as long as possible. So they don't know what those dollar figures are, but they are working on a plan for what they're doing the bridge life cycle cost analysis in essence, and working on what other partnerships are needed and what it all looks like, which is good. What else do I have? Working on public records requests. Also working on the public works director hiring. We posted it a week or 2 ago. I haven't gotten any responses out of it yet. I am working on doing a flyer advertisement similar to what other agencies do, talking about the projects in the city and trying to get more information out there and post it to some other organizations. I have currently, the first review being December 16th, which again, it's the first review, open until filled. And then we have an RFQ out for IT services, and that's going to be due December 1st. And part of what triggered that is RadComp is working on, they've been working on getting all of their clients on a management services contract. I think we're one of the last holdouts. And so when I looked at the cost of that, it exceeded the dollar amount that we have in our current policy. And even if we did it's over, I think I think the current policy is $7,500. And I forget what the dollar amount was but it wasn't much more than what we're currently spending. It just works out differently. And so that's in process. And then also as a recommendation from the audit was to update our purchasing policy as well, because it doesn't reference any federal funding procurement processes. And some of the figures are out of date. They're lower than what the state legislature has raised them to. And we also attended a training yesterday on federal grants. Lovely material. So a lot of the information from that will also be incorporated into the policy. Again, just updating it, making it more robust. And I'm copying or borrowing heavily from the city of Lake Stevens, which is a very recent document and has all the information that the auditors requested and is also, I feel, more user-friendly.
Funny you mentioned Lake Stevens, Liana. That's where I am at this moment.
Nice.
That's where I'm sitting right now.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, their purchasing policy looks very user-friendly. So.
No. Okay.
And so that, again, I wasn't able to get that ready for this council meeting. And I also didn't want to throw anything at you, especially since I wasn't planning on having it being approved tonight. But as soon as that's done, I will send that out and hopefully have it on the next agenda.
Ken? I have a question about public records requests. I understand the importance and why we do them. Is there anything that precludes us from documenting how much time is spent on any particular request?
No, it's not as if you can charge anybody, but
No.
actually the state did an inventory survey not that long ago, asking small cities to report the amount of time they spent on public records requests for the purpose of maybe introducing, I think it was AWC did, and to introduce maybe some legislative changes. So it's not a bad idea to keep track of the time you spend. Again, you
In
never
general,
get that
can
money
we
back.
go detailed as to what the request, who made the request or what the request was? Or just?
Not so much, because that really is kind of irrelevant for the purposes of just tracking the cost to the cities, is that's what I think AWC was looking at.
Maybe what you should do is number your requests. Keep track by an account number.
I started adding the time staff spent as an estimate.
How'd
To
that
a
work
col-
for you?
Well, to a column, to a spreadsheet that we've,
Yeah.
that we keep track of all of our requests on.
Mhm.
So
I would like to know.
there's no dollar amount associated, nor does it state like
And I'm
who
not looking
those
for that.
hours were
I'm not
from.
looking
but-
for that
yeah,
either,
yeah,
but I would like it to be known how much time staff spends on public record requests.
It's actually helpful too, because when you do a response to a records request, and you have to let the requester know the time it's going to take to respond. When you have limited staff like we have, it's a justification if this takes longer. Because, you know, when you have experience with other records requests and you've actually done like you suggested, logging the amount of time it's taken to respond, it gives you some, in case there's a challenge that you didn't do a prompt request like you're required to, that it's because, you know, staffing issues, this is the amount of time that, you know, we really have a reason to estimate it's going to take to respond. So, you
Because
know,
we only have X amount of time to actually spend. on
exactly,
it.
that only that much time for staff. And as long as you're not penalizing the requester, you're just reasonably allocating staff time to this process. You can't necessarily set everything else aside to respond to a records request. You know, a small city, you know, you'd be ground to a halt.
Yeah.
So it's, for a small city, it's really important to keep some kind of track of that. Would help me a lot if I'm in court telling the judge, this was a reasonable time to respond.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
So moved.
Second. Got a first and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi,
Thank you. Do either of you have, or any of the three of you have anything for the greater good?
Leona, you're gonna let us know about a meeting with the commissioners sometime in December. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know how many of them check their emails on Fridays.
Okay.
Adam's there on Fridays though, so I'll talk with him.
Well,
No, he's not.
No, he's not. Okay.
He may say no.
Okay, well,
okay, thank you.
What I'm saying is even if he's there, he's not,
Right,
he
gotcha,
doesn't take.
gotcha. Email.
Adam works very hard and he deserves his Friday off. He does go to the office.
Okay, oh, gotcha.
It's like,
So he said he could
I don't want that
contract
to come
on
out the
Friday,
wrong
so-
way. Adam's a good friend of mine. I don't want anybody
Yeah.
thinking that he
Yeah.
does not work hard. I'm gonna stop talking while I can.
I will be polling the other two council members to see if they'll be able to make the December 16th meeting, to ensure a quorum, and then after that, I'll post public hearing notices. Also with the approval of the integrated planning grant, that's gonna come out of a separate fund, and since it's approved before the end of the year, I'm gonna do a budget amendment for this year to include that fund in those expenses. So that'll be a public hearing at the next meeting.
Question, if we don't have enough for a quorum for the December meeting, is it possible to move the date So that we do have?
Yes, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Because we need to get that budget.
So that may be,
Right.
an option for us.
And that's what I think what we did last year
doodle poll.
too, is we moved the date of the meeting to make sure that
Because the year before,
it was a last minute, what? It was,
did we have to get somebody on the phone?
yeah,
We had to
yeah, I
call
think we
Jenny
did.
or something, right?
I don't
And to
know.
be clear, I may be available via Zoom, just depending on if I have internet access where I will be.
I like to have at least 4, just in case. So, yeah, I'll confirm with Robert and Annie.
Okay.
And then we'll see how things shake out to whether or not it's gonna be a light budget, so we can get on with the evening. All right, anything that you would like to see on the next agenda?
Thank you for everything that you have done.
Thank you for your thank you. And for stepping up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be my last meeting.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Cake and ice cream.
Party hats and ice makers. We'll have a couple of those laying around. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.